it's actually a little embarrassing. Well, I figured out that come May, I'll have been a Christian for 30 years. That's not embarrassing, but happy about that. And I've been going to church since I was a little kid. What's embarrassing is we started a couple of weeks ago looking at the Gospels, saying, okay, how can we pray like Jesus? And just a couple of lessons that I've heard and helped teach have been like, how could I have been in this for so long and not known these things, right? Like, or ask that question. Like in all of the times of, just hearing other people pray and learning how to pray and trying to be better at prayer and trying to pray more and all of those things that we try to do as Christians, and just the simplicity of some of the things that we've talked about, that I realize, like, I don't know if that has really been a big part of my prayer life. Like, I don't know if that has directed me. I don't know if anybody ever taught me those things. And so we started out and we've been looking at John 17 and this prayer that Jesus prays at the end of his life. And he begins and he just says, God, Father, glorify me so that I can glorify you. And just when you look through the different prayers of Jesus, and obviously the life of Jesus, this concept of his whole life being so wrapped up in bringing glory and honor and fame and all, just wanting to shed light on the goodness of the Father. And that even when he prays then in John 17, I would think normally, like, I could not pray like that. And because what Jesus does is he opens like that, but then he goes on to talk about the disciples that were given to him and entrusted to him and how good of a job he did with that. And he's like, and I brought you glory because I finished the work you gave me to do. And just kind of realizing that so much of my prayer life was about the negative things, about the things I failed to do, about the ways, Lord, help me do better, help me do better, help me do, and that's fine, but actually taking the time to celebrate with God was just refreshing. It was refreshing the last couple of weeks to say, God, like, I felt like you wanted me to, just be around people more and do more around people. And look, like, I got to do this with these people and that with those people. And maybe that didn't move a mountain, but man, that was what you called me to do. And I did the work that you called me to do. And I pray that brings glory to you, Father. And so just those little things, wow, like it's honestly, like, it's exciting and a little embarrassing. Like, how could I have not known that? And then last week, what struck me when Preston was talking, and I believe he used the word addressing God as Father. And what hit me about that was I realized that I was using the word Father, like I was using the term Father, but I was not approaching God as Father. I was approaching God as the high and holy, distant one. And there's a time for that too. But to kind of reimagine that and to re-understand that, say, I'm not just going to call you Father, but I'm going to love you. I'm going to talk to you like you're my Father and really try to have a relationship in prayer like you're my Father. So this has all been really exciting. We're going to talk about some things today that maybe are very simple, basic, some things that maybe you're like, oh, good, I'm already doing that. Like, and not another thing that I have to add to my, agenda, my to-do list of like ways I need to fix my prayer life or things I need to add to my prayer life. I hope that's the case. Others might be challenging in that the simplicity might be the challenge. So we'll see. So really what struck me is in John 17, and so when we said, we're not going to read through the whole prayer today, just hit on this. This is the end of Jesus' life. He's going to the Father, and there's kind of a sequence that he'd be glorified so he could glorify the Father, and then the initial part of the prayer is praying for the 12, which is really the 11, because at this point Judas has already kind of gone away. And so Jesus is praying for them, and then the prayer kind of turns, and he says, not only for them, but for all who would come after them. But this is the part, these are the verses here, verses 9 and 10, that really struck me. He says, my prayer is not for the world. So just that. My prayer is not for the world, but for those you have given me, because they belong to you. All who are mine belong to you, and you have given them to me, so they bring me glory. So what struck me about this was there's two main things, and the first was, and this might not be the thing that jumps out at you, but to me, that Jesus was praying for something that was a burden to him. It was something that was a passion for him. So all of the world, yes, God so loved the world that he sent his only son, but God entrusted Jesus Christ with 12. And so that was a special task for Jesus. And so Jesus is coming here, and he's going to God towards the end of his life, and he says, right now, God, I'm not praying for the whole world. I'm just praying for these 12 guys. I'm really narrow, I'm focusing it in. And this idea of Jesus praying for what was burdening him, or what was his passion, is, we're going to see that in a couple other places. Here, there's one on the screen right now. This is when Jesus, in a different prayer that also was even closer to the end of his life, he knows that he's going to die, and it says that he prayed more fervently. So he's this is when he's down in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's praying so intensely that it says that his sweat was like drops of blood. All right, so he prayed more fervently, is what the text said. And then in Hebrews, when a later writer is kind of recounting this, he says that, well, Jesus was here on earth. He offered prayers and pleadings with loud cries and tears. Right? Like, you don't do that if you don't care about what you're praying about. And unless you're just like a drama queen, which we don't think Jesus was, right? Like, that's not our interpretation of Jesus Christ. Like, oh yeah, Jesus, he was always making a big deal about things that were really not that big of a deal. And so Jesus just had this way about him. And what we see is, when the prayers that are recorded, they're things that he really cared about. In Matthew chapter 9, this is not Jesus actually, we don't have a recorded prayer, but we see his heart. And so it says, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were like confused and helpless sheep without a shepherd, right? And so he says to his disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray that the Lord in charge of the harvest will send workers into the fields, right? Pray to the Lord of the harvest that he'll send workers into the field. So Jesus, why is he telling them to pray this? Well, all we know from the text is he's moved by his compassion, the compassion that he feels that's welling up inside of him, where he sees the crowds, and they're like sheep without a shepherd. They're lost and confused, and they need help. And so he says he's burdened by that. And he's passionate about it. And he calls his disciples to pray for that. And we see this kind of example move on, like in the book of Acts. Peter is in prison, and it just says in Acts 12:5 that while he's in prison, the church prayed very earnestly for him. And in Colossians 4:12, we introduces us at the end of the book to a guy named Epaphras. And this is in the NIV, it uses this term, he's always wrestling in prayer for you. Right? Like, you're not wrestling in prayer for something that you don't care about. And so here's where that strikes me, is because I will sometimes not pray for the thing that I want to pray for, and maybe you can relate to me in that. But I pray for the things I think I'm supposed to be praying for. And again, like, I'm not condemning that, because probably the things that I think I'm supposed to be praying for, I am supposed to be praying for. But not to the neglect of the things that I really care about. And when we talk about, just really wanting to pray, having a good prayer life, I think that is going to flow out of having a relationship with God in which I really have the confidence that he wants to hear the things that I care about. He wants to hear about those things. And the challenge in that is, can we talk to God even about the mundane things? Can we talk to God about the frustration that is filling our hearts because the team benched the quarterback and put that other guy in? Can we talk to God about the excitement that we're feeling because on the game on my phone, I finally got to that next level? Can we talk to God about the excitement we're feeling because finally the author released the new volume of the book series that we're into, that we've been waiting for 3 years and it's out? Do we tell God those things? Do you believe that God cares about that? Because that is you, and that is your heart, and that is what you care about. Now, all of these things, we're going to see that all of the lessons we learned from John 17 are kind of building up, and they're moving towards our final destination in a couple of weeks. They're all great lessons in and of themselves, but I think what we see on week 5 is going to be really, hopefully, maybe you'll get it. Maybe you'll be like, oh yeah, I've been seeing that the whole time, Rob. I'm 2 steps ahead of you. And I hope that's the case. But this is my challenge to you. My challenge to you is, as you go to God in prayer, and as you really pray for his glory, and pray for his glory to be in your life, and pray that he'll glorify you so that you can glorify him, and that you're addressing him as Father, and you're really trying to communicate with him as your Father, then share with him your day. Share with him your heart. Share with him the things that you're really passionate about, the things that are really hurting you. The things that really get on your nerves, that are really bugging you, the things that you really want to do something about, but maybe the things that are in the world that you can't, that you feel like, I don't have the power to do anything about. This is too far away or it's too big, but God, this is what I really care about. Can you help with that? Can you do something? Can you send workers into that field? And let our prayers, may we be people that when others speak of us, they can say they wrestle in prayer about those things, or they pray earnestly, or they pray fervently for the things that they really care about. And that makes it a lot easier when we are praying about the things that we actually care about. That's going to make our prayers different. It's going to fill our prayers with more hope and just more zip and zing. And you're not going to, and hopefully that's going to make you look towards a time that you're going to be praying, and you're excited about it. I can't wait to tell God about this thing. The good things, the important things, and the things that we're supposed to talk to him about, but also all of the other things that are in our lives. Why would we keep those things from him? Why would we not share those things with God? And that kind of comes to the next point. And that is, this idea that he says, I'm not praying for the world right now, but for those you've given me. All who are mine belong to you, and you've given them to me. And so the other thing is praying for that which is our own. And I know that one of the things that I will struggle with sometimes is feeling overwhelmed with the amount of people to pray for. And I'm always really impressed. Some of us in like our staff meeting, we're talking about this, like the people that will have the prayer list, or they'll come up to you and they'll say something like, I pray for you every day. And I wonder, like, how many people are on that list? And how long are you praying? And are you going down? And what is that like? And I'm grateful. Don't get me wrong. I am so grateful. If you're praying for me every day, thank you. But I just, like, is that like, and Rob, and this person, and that person, and that person, and that person? Hey, thanks for putting my name on that list. Or are you taking time? Are you spending it? Jesus didn't do that. He said, right now, God, I'm not praying for the whole world, but for these few. That's some language in some of the literature that's given to like our small group leaders, especially for like the youth and the children, is like, who are your few? Right? Who are your people? Who are the few that God has entrusted you with? Because this was true for Jesus, but I believe this is true for you and me. that there's a whole world that you're navigating through. There's people that you're connected with. There's people that you're talking to, interacting with all of the time. But God has given you some that you really have an influence over, some that He's really calling you to guide in a special way. And are you praying? What happens when you stop trying to pray for everybody and you just pray for the few? And this is what I think that probably some people are like, oh yeah, I already do that. I don't pray for everybody. Like, who could pray for everybody? But sometimes the mounting requests and the needs that we know that are out there in the world can be overbearing. But Jesus, in all of that, honed it in. And so kind of if we move through, there's just kind of snippets through the rest of John 17, we see some of the other things that he prayed for in verse, kind of towards the end of verse 11. He says, protect them by the power of your name so that they'll be united just as we are. And in 15 he says, I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe from the evil one. And then in verse 17, Jesus says, make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is your truth. And then we see that switch in verse 20 where he says, I'm praying not only for these disciples, but also for those who will ever believe in me through their message. And so there's almost like maybe a ripple effect or a concentric circle kind of idea here where Jesus is starting with these few, but then seeing and understanding the impact that they will have or that he hopes they have, and then praying for that impact. People do that all the time when they talk about, I'm praying now for my child's future spouse. Right? That's the kind of thing like where who are you? You really are caring about your few, the kids that God has given you. But because of that prayer and because of that care and that burden and that passion, you're kind of the next circle is like, oh yeah, at some point this person's going to leave my house. And when they leave my house, then God, will you be preparing right now the relationships that they will make in college, because that is such an important thing, right? The friends that they'll make when they go off to college, the professors they'll have, the advisors they'll have, the mentors that will come in their life, that when they leave my house, if they leave my town, if they leave where our home church is, that they'll find a church, that there will be a church there that will be a good, strong, healthy church, or if it's not, that they will be open to my kid coming in and making some waves, right? That we're praying, that we kind of see that ripple effect of who we're praying for. But these things go hand in hand, right? Because if I'm praying about the things that I'm really passionate about and that I feel a burden by, then that's definitely going to be my few. The few people that God has really put in my inner circle. And then praying for those people and being passionate in our prayer for those people. And so I want to repent because a couple of weeks ago, I made fun of boring prayers. Some of you may recall, some of you were hurt by it, and I apologize. Because I said that sometimes it's tough for me to pray in groups. And actually, I also got some people that were like, I didn't say amen real loud when you said that, but I was thinking it in my heart, right? Like, because it can be tough. It's when you get in a group, and maybe you have a life group, and you've got like 10 or 12 people, and you're like, all right, well, does anybody have any prayer requests? And there's a little bit in me, and this was my confession that week. There's a little bit in me that when we ask for prayer requests, I'm like, oh man, like oh boy, like what's going, and it's like, so we're praying for like Fifi's, the dog, the puppy, like we're praying for Fifi's toenail, like ingrown toenail, and then like, Aunt so and so, and she fell out of bed. And all of these are good things, and they're important things. But here's what transforms that, and where I'm convicted, and why I'm repenting here today. Sorry, I said that in like look at me, I'm repenting. That was not intentional. Seriously, in giving this some thought, because I've had some prayer requests come into my life in the last couple of days that matter to me. They might not have mattered to you, but they matter to me. Sorry. Because of that few, and they impacted the few. Because of that, my love for them, that their problems, small or big, become my burdens, my passions. So today, we're going to spend some time in prayer. And we're going to pray like Jesus. And that's, I mean, what we're I'm going to walk off the stage. We're going to have a couple of minutes that's just going to be quiet time. And then we will collectively have a song selected that we'll sing together that is a song that is meant to be a prayer that we are praying together that fits the theme. But what I want to challenge you in, as we do it, you can kind of practice right now, is pick one of those things. Either, maybe you don't know. You're like, I don't know who my few are. Like, okay, well, maybe talk to God about that. Who are those people? Who's my inner circle, God? Who are the people that you really, the answer should be obvious. Who are the people that you're passionate about? Who are the people that you feel burdened by? Like, not in a bad way burdened, but in a good way. Like, you're highly invested in their future and in their life. And you so desperately want them to be blessed by God and want them to be living for God and be close to God. Who are those people? And what are their needs and what are their desires, right? So maybe that's one route. I'm going to make this just two things. That's A. Or B, just talk to God about the normal everyday stuff. Talk to God about where you're going to go to lunch after church. Talk to God about what you're going to do later today or what you did yesterday and if it was fun or not. The chores that you still have around your house, that list that is growing that you know that you need to get done. Talk to God about the boring stuff. We're only going to give you 2 minutes, so no. But I'm going to leave you now. I will pray, and then I will leave us to pray on our own. God, thank you so much. We love you. We love you, God. And just praying with the confidence that if you know every hair on my boring head, then you care about every single part of my life. And that you want to know me. That you sent your son to die on the cross and rise again for me. For each and every one of us. And that's an investment that you have made. So that we could be called your children. And God, as your children, help us to address you and see you as Father. And help us to run up and right now jump on your lap and just tell you about all of the things that we care about.